Pretty crappy day. Not much for loot. I'm headed to the market anyway. Only about 3 mil, a little bit more. 3.7, depending on Jita's market.
Warp drive active.
It's a good amount of jumps. I was hanging out in a Mars space, 46 jumps. I, I'm not too worried about getting ganked in a little rookie ship. I mean, they're gonna pop you. They're gonna pop you anyway, and it's only 3.7 million, so they probably lose more than they gain. It's generally not worth it. It's quick. It's easy. Plus, I got to pick up a ship while I'm there. Now, I did come across I thought it was a pretty good deal in the contracts. I came across a Stratios. Some of you are going to eye roll. That's okay. I love it. It's a beautiful ship. Always wanted one. Been playing since 2004, and once those came out, I was just in love with the shape. So, I bought it on contract for 309 million. It's sitting right here, and oops. So yeah, I go through looking for some really good fits to try, and of course everybody's like, well, I didn't ask it, but you can see it in the comments. Oh, why do you fly that? Why do you fly that? People love to pop that anytime they see it on D scan. Yeah, you know what? There's always that in the game. There's all, well, not always. Back, in the first few years, there was a little more, say, honor in PvP. There wasn't much ganking, definitely in high sec. Low sec, of course, you can't hardly, call it ganking once you get out of Empire. Anyway, that's just kind of business as usual. But let's see. We'll look at the market details. They were running right around this, even in Jita, right around 314 million. Now, why I bought that one, there was another for 400 million. And then I started taking a look. Now, this one here will go to simulate fit. I put a few things on it that I dropped off. This is not a final build or anything. I just had some loot laying around. But here's what it had. It had medium Trimark armor pump 2 and another one, plus current router. Now that's pretty cheap overall. The current router, right? It's only 3.7 million. But these Tech 2s ended up being pretty expensive overall. 18 million. So when you add two of those together, that's 36 million. So it was a good deal on the Stratus. I couldn't pass it up, because if I decide not to use it, or try it and decide I don't like it, I can leave it hanging in the hangar. I've got a couple orcas. I've got I don't know. You collect a lot over 20 some odd years. But I can always turn around and recontract it out. In fact, at what I bought it for, I could repackage it and lose out on the rigs and still break even. But I could probably contract it and make out anyway. I did that with the Astero. I got a really good deal on it. So I was able to fly it around for a little bit and say, yeah, it's cool, but yeah, I didn't really have a use for it other than to spin in the station. So I transported it from where I bought it and sold it for a little bit of profit. I kind of That's kind of how I try to look at it. If you're going to spend a lot of money on a ship, I try to get a good enough deal so if I continue to
Warp drive
enjoy it, I can
active.
keep it. If I don't, I can turn around and either repackage it or contract it out and not lose money. That's kind of the goal: is don't lose money. That's one of the reasons I left one nullsec alliance. It was Cyberdyne with what was it, Krolls? That was Anybody who's familiar with it already has a pretty good opinion and knows. But it was not profitable at all. It was pure loss, and it seemed that yeah, you really didn't get paid back for any losses. You didn't get you know ship replacement, but you could buy ships at our Concord
Warp drive
station
active.
at a super inflated rate. So uh, it might have been about a year after I was in that. I was like, yeah, that's nice. And you want a PvP? That's awesome too. Do what you want to do, but you have to be able to pay for it. If you don't have money coming in, you can't have money going out. It's pretty basic. When they wanted to engage in PvP, which is pretty much 24/7, there was a ban on anything else. You know, no ratting, no PI, no nothing. So I was like, yeah, screw this. They can they can have that noise. But yeah, I'm just gonna go and drop off this meager loot from today. I must have been right behind somebody else. I ran into the same guy twice. So yeah, it works out that way. But I can't complain. I'm gonna say about 200 million
Warp drive
this last
active.
week, and it's all in just high sec data and relic. I got a couple ghost sites which were pretty nice. I'm What I'm really trying to do is to work up that I have enough survivable that I'll probably go wormhole hopping. I used to live in a wormhole, and that was kind of fun actually. I enjoyed that. Um, and then Pochven or Pochven, however you want to say it. I would say it Pochven. So I've just kind of been looking at what you got to do for standing enough that you can use certain gates and stations and understand, because I have not done that. So right now I'm just kind of researching a little bit. So once I get out there,
Active.
I'll know what I kind of need to do, and I already know, don't fly anything expensive. You need the filament to get in, get out. There's a Pochven highway everybody's talking about. So, sometimes I just, you know, I just get in a ship and I'm like, hold my beer, and I'll just sort it out. It's kind of like when I played Warcraft back when that first started up, because everybody at work was. Nobody knew what bosses did. And I'm like, well, poke it and we'll find out. So, YOLO. So, I'm going to drop this off, cash in that 3.7 million. It might work out to 3.5. And I've got a Pioneer sitting up in Caldari space. I think I'm going to drag that down to a Mars space. I kind of like a Mars space right now. It's a little less populated. The market kind of sucks, but it's not as bad as Mimitar space. Good grief. Sometimes what I do though is I'll pick up some
Warp
extra
drive
goodies
active.
that there's good profit on in the market, and since I'm going up there, I'll just shove some of it in my cargo hold and then put that on the market just to make the trip a little more worth it. You know, I I want to say I avoid politics, but you can't do that anymore. But it kind of struck me that there's a lot of politics in Eve. Everybody knows that, and now everything else is politics. And what I figured out here, so let's go security status, is pretty much you can look at the way the world is right now today, and you've got areas on the globe that are like this. They're 0 0. But you know what used to be Empire space has pretty much now turned into low sec. You think it's safe in places you could go if you check ahead of time. But turns out you're probably more likely to get gate camped. Me, I live out in the middle of pretty much nowhere. I'm out in the Carpathian Mountains, and I love it. I
Warp
you know
drive
I if
active.
I get a delivery truck and the guy calls me and tells me that oh yeah he's out in front of my gate. No, he's not, because I can see for miles. And I can see the intersection for the road he has to come up here on. So I kind of like that. But I would say it's actually ironically safer in Eastern Europe, except for Ukraine, uh, and it has been for, well, Romania left communism in '89, in December of '89. Well, we'll say on paper it left communism. I don't know that you truly leave communism, because that bureaucracy becomes so ingrained in everything, it takes
Warp
forever to
drive
get it out.
active.
So, but it's been, well, safer than many of your capital cities, in some of the smaller towns. Even now, I can walk around if I feel like it. I can drive into one of the cities. I've done it, or even the towns. Walk around at midnight, no issues. There's really no issues, and I love that. I'm not particularly young anymore. Disabled veteran, and former law enforcement. So it's kind of nice to be able to divorce yourself from all of that stuff. Just push yourself away from that table and play Eve.
Warp
Uh,
drive
I got I
active.
got hooked on that back in 2004, like I said, around Christmas time. All the other engineers at work, um, that was the game they were playing, so I had to play with them. And every year since then, if I hadn't been playing, when it gets cold outside, you see the snow. I I always get sucked back into Eve. There's just something about starting it in December where it's freezing outside and cold, and mining out in space, to make the first ship, because there wasn't much on the market back in the day. So yes, Eve is kind of like the mistress.
Warp drive active.
Um, you know, yeah, you always seem to kind of want to go back to that at some point. But the recent changes are pretty nice. I had come back again this cycle. I'm part of the bitter vets, that era of Eve. But came back, and I was playing for about 6 months, and then they just had this winter festival, the new ships, the Pioneer, and all of that, and it's actually pretty good. I like a lot of the changes. Um, I think overall they've been pretty good. Um, well, I'll go ahead and I guess I'm going to sign off here. Anyway, fly safe.